Hey everybody, today's Facts in 5 video is called Wait, My Estate Needs 2 Probates. So yes, sometimes it is required for there to be not only one, but 2 or more probate estates opened after somebody passes away. So what are those different types of probate processes called? When do you need to do it? And we're going to walk through the basics of that today. So to start with, we're going to start with some important terminology, and that is domiciliary probate and ancillary probate. Those are the 2 types of probate. Domiciliary probate is the probate performed in the state in which you keep your primary residence or your domicile. So if you live here in Connecticut for the majority of the year, your house is here, you file your taxes here, your car is registered here, you vote here, and you're a Connecticut resident. If you pass away and a probate is needed, you're going to open that probate estate here in Connecticut, and that is going to be known as the domiciliary probate. If you own tangible assets in another state, and most commonly it takes the form of real estate. So let's say you own your domicile here in Connecticut, but you also own a vacation property out on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. So when you pass away, you're going to need potentially a domiciliary probate here in Connecticut, but then also an ancillary probate out in Massachusetts because you have tangible assets in the form of that vacation house out in Massachusetts. Be aware, ancillary probate is only going to be applicable to tangible assets. So things you can touch, you can hold, you can move, and real estate tends to be the most common one. It is not going to apply to intangible assets. So for example, let's say you used to live in Massachusetts, you open some bank accounts there, and then you move to Connecticut, but you still have bank accounts in that Massachusetts bank. You're not going to be required to do a Massachusetts probate for those bank accounts because those are intangible assets. They're deemed to kind of follow you wherever you are currently living. So, but circle back to the example of owning real estate in multiple states. So if you do own that house here in Connecticut and that vacation property, for example, out on Cape Cod, your beneficiaries after you pass away will not only necessarily need to just open an estate here in Connecticut, that domiciliary estate, but they'll also potentially need to do a probate out in Massachusetts. So 2 probates for the price of 2. If one wasn't bad enough, try going through it 2 times. Not so great of an option for your beneficiaries there. So how do we avoid it? So one, it's important to know that not all your assets are going to need to go through probate in the first place. That's why I said potentially need a domiciliary probate or potentially need an ancillary probate. Because just because you own assets, they may not have to go through probate. It's going to depend how you own those assets. So the rules, at least here in Connecticut, and this tends to be common with most other states I've come across, probate is only going to be required for individually owned assets. So something that's just titled in your own name. And if we're sticking with real estate, let's use that as an example. If your house here in Connecticut is just in your name, it will need to go through probate here in Connecticut before ownership can pass out to your beneficiaries. So the same is true for most other states, again, that I've come across. So if you own that house here in Connecticut in your own name, and then that house out on the Cape in your own name, you'll need to do both a Connecticut and Massachusetts probate. Assets that don't need to go through probate or non-probate assets are assets that are jointly owned, assets that are owned in trust, or assets that are passing through a beneficiary designation. So a real simple way to make sure you avoid ancillary probate for that house out on Cape Cod, put somebody else on as a joint owner, or maybe create a trust and put that house in trust. As far as I know, Massachusetts doesn't allow this. I know Connecticut doesn't allow this. In Connecticut, you can't put a beneficiary designation on real estate. Some states might, so look into the laws of the state where you own that second property, and maybe putting a beneficiary designation on that piece of real estate would also be an option. But again, just be aware that's not available in all states. So another way of avoiding ancillary probate sometimes is people put that secondary property, that vacation house, or maybe it's a rental property or whatever it might be, into a business entity. Most commonly, we're seeing LLCs. You can use a corporation or other type of business entity, but most commonly it's an LLC that we're seeing. But be aware that if you, or maybe I should take a step back. So when you put that real estate into the LLC, you've now converted your tangible property, so that piece of real estate, into an intangible asset. Because what you own now is you don't own the property. The LLC owns the property and you own the LLC. By kind of putting that LLC as the middleman, you've now turned it into an intangible asset. So again, it won't require ancillary probate in that other state. It may still require domiciliary probate because if you individually own your LLC membership interest, that's still an individually owned asset that would need to go through probate in your domiciliary estate. So if you want to avoid probate altogether, you're also going to have to take the additional step of making sure that LLC membership interest is a non-probate asset. So it's jointly owned. or it's passing under a beneficiary designation, sometimes called a TOD, transfer on death, or that your LLC membership interest is owned in trust. So thanks for paying attention through this not so fun topic of domiciliary probate versus ancillary probate, but albeit kind of dull, it is very important to know if you own real estate out of state. So if you have more questions, please contact us on our website, kkc-law.com, where you'll find all of my contact information. Again, if you have some specific questions that weren't answered with the presentation today. Thanks.